Welcome back. So, I'm going to do two more problems on magnetic circuits before I close this topic of magnetic circuits. So, these two questions that I'm now going to do, I have picked up from the last year midsem that we gave to the same course in the spring semester. So, let's look at these are from both these questions are actually from the questions from Fitzgerald Kingsley. So the magnetic circuit of the figure has two windings and two air gaps. So this is the air gap 1, this is the air gap 2, G1 and G2. The core can be assumed to be of infinite permeability. So when I say mu r is infinite, core has an infinite permeability. What it amounts to saying is that just a minute, this is a sketch that I like to do. So this is H, this is P, and when I say core has infinite permeability, what I mean to, let me take a slightly thicker one so you will see it. So what we are saying is that this BH, when we say infinite permeability, um, what we mean is actually that this is what means mu r to going to infinity. So what it means is that uh, to set up any B or flux density or flux in the core, the ampere turns that you require is ampere turns that you require are 0. So this is of course an idealization. It is not true, but when mu r is very high and air gap has mu r 1 and let's say the core has some 10 to the power 5 or 10 to the power 6, then such an approximation makes sense. So assume that the core can be assumed to have infinite permeability. Assuming coil 1, so there are two coils here, right? Coil 1 and coil 2. And assuming coil 1 to be carrying current I1 and current in the coil 2 to be 0, so there is no current here and the first part is having a current. Calculate the magnetic flux density in each of the air gaps. So that means here and here. Calculate the magnetic flux density in each of the air gaps. The flux linking winding 1, this is winding 1, and the flux linkage for winding 2. So flux linkage is n times of phi. So it's not the flux, uh, it's the flux linkage which has been asked, not just the flux which has been asked. You should make note of this. And part B is repeat part A assuming current in winding 1 to be 0 and only winding 2 is carrying the current. So it's like this, that first you calculate lambda, you have to calculate this and this when I1 is there, I2 is not there. Next time you have to again calculate this flux linking these two windings. Now the lambda, now I2 is there and I1 will be 0. So this is what we have to calculate and then repeat part A assuming winding 1 to be I1 and current in winding 2 to be I2. So it's a generalization now where both the windings can be carrying currents and then we have to calculate lambda G1 and lambda G1, lambda G2, everything, lambda W1, lambda W2. So you have to calculate all the four of it. So first let's draw the equivalent circuit. Okay, so if the current is entering this terminal, it will produce flux linkage in this direction. Now, by right hand screw rule, you can yourself do that. I am not going to describe the steps again. Closes from here. At this point, its flux lines will split into two parts. One will go through this air gap, another will go through this air gap. They will come and meet again here and then close and return back to the circuit. So that's one thing which is going to happen. So And the other thing is, in this path here, it will also see a MMF rise of N2 I2. So there is a MMF jump which is going to happen here, which is of N2 I2. And you can see that the flux which is created by the current which is entering this I2, if you use the right hand screw and trace, rotate it in the direction of the current, it will trace exactly the same arrow as this blue arrow. So therefore, the effect of these two currents is to create additive flux in the common path and not the subtractive flux, So keeping and the reluctance of this path is 0. Similarly, reluctance of this path is also 0. So the reluctance of this path is 0. This path is 0. 0 reluctance, 0 reluctance. So therefore, what is going to be the equivalent circuit? N1I1 is the excitation. Will just in this, when you apply the KVL across this loop, you will only face the reluctance due to air gap 1, because when mu r is infinite, the other reluctance is 0. So when you trace this loop, you will get N1I1 in parallel with R1, which is the reluctance of the gap 1, which you can write it as 1 by mu 0 G1 by A1 ampere turns per Weber. Okay. Now, when you take the other route through G2, first you will see the encounter this reluctance R2, which is nothing but 1 by mu 0 G2 by A2 ampere turns per meter. And then as you come back and want to close this loop, you will encounter a MMF rise of N2 I2, and then you will hit this point where the air gap flux is coming and joining. So you will meet this junction, and so this becomes your equivalent magnetic circuit. Now let's come to the first part. The first part is that there is no current in I2 is set to 0. So therefore this MMF is 0, and effectively what you are having N1I1 in parallel with R1 and R2. Now these reluctances add when they are in series, and reciprocal of reluctances add when they are in parallel. They follow exactly the same laws as the laws of resistances. So if we want to calculate the flux in this path, it is we will take this loop and we see N1I1 divided by R1, which will, substituting the R1 value there, you will get this flux to be equal to this, will be so many Webers. Similarly, N1I1 also is the MMF acting across R2. So therefore, phi G2 will be N1I1 by R2, and when you substituted that, this is what you will get as the flux here. Let's write down the units for flux. Always write down the units. Make it a practice. I'll deduct marks if I don't find units written in the paper. So I have an expression, but you don't write the units, then I deduct marks. So now flux density. So flux density is going to be flux divided by area of cross section. So therefore it will be simply mu 0 by G1 into N1 I1. Mu 0 by G1 into N1 I1. Similarly, flux Bg2 is going to be equal to mu 0 by G2 into, again, same MMF N1 I1 is being applied across it. So does that cover the assuming the coil 1 is carrying a current I1 and current in I2 is 0, calculate the magnetic flux density in each of the air gaps. Okay, 1 is done. 2 is flux linkage of the winding 1 and flux linkage of the winding 2. So to calculate the flux linkage, first we have to know, our attention is shifting to these two. From so far we are looking at air gap. Now our attention is shifting to these windings. So winding 1 will carry phi 1, which is here, which is summation uh, of the flux in this path and flux in this path. So that is what is going to be here. What we have calculated here was phi 1 minus phi 2, the flux across this path, and this path what we have calculated is across the other air gap is phi 2. So to calculate the flux which is going through winding 1, we should add phi g1 plus phi g2, which when I add it here, it is n1 uh, uh, N1I1 is the MMF which was applied, which was common to this path, into mu 0 A1 by G1 plus A2 by G2. You can check it out. This is the flux. So therefore, what becomes of the flux linkage? Lambda W1 is N1 times phi W1. Again, check this figure. N1 turns here carrying flux phi W1. So the flux which is going here is phi W1. The flux which is going here is phi W2. So N1 times of phi W, and flux linkage becomes N1 times of phi W1. So therefore, now this N1 is again multiplied by another N1. So you get N1 square mu 0 by A1 G1 plus A2 G plus A2 by G2 times of I1. So actually now what would, suppose you were asked to define the self inductance of winding 1. So how would you have defined the self inductance? Current in I2 is 0, so therefore we don't have to, second winding is 0, so we don't have to worry about it. So the self inductance of the winding 1 would be I lambda W1 by I1, which basically means that this term here in this bracket is the ratio of this by this, which is nothing but the self-inductance of the winding one. And again, you see this result I had brought it out earlier also. It is proportional to the square of the number of turns and depends upon the geometry. Now the geometry is slightly more complicated, but whatever it is, geometry. And of course, since the mu r of iron is taken to be infinite, so it only depends upon the mu of the air gap. So that's about it. Now let's look at the flux linkage of winding 2. Flux linkage of winding 2 will be whatever is the flux which is phi G2, which is going through this. So phi W2 and phi G2 being one and the same, you have to multiply phi G2 by N2. So therefore N2 times of phi G2, and now substitute for phi G2 from here, N1 I1 by G2 mu 0 A2. So therefore you get N1 N2 by G2 mu 0 A2 times of I1. So now again this ratio means I2 being 0, this ratio of flux linking the winding 2 divided by the current, the cause, which is the current in winding 1, will be the mutual inductance L12, or basically between two coils. In this case we can we will say it's the mutual inductance. There are only two coils, only one mutual inductance between 1 and 2, so we will call that as M. So you can now again see here that therefore this term here, though not asked in this problem, is actually the ratio of phi W2 by I1, and hence the mutual inductance. Again, you see that it is proportional to product of the number of the two turns of the number of turns in each of the coil, depends upon the geometry which is shared. So the geometry which is shared here is only related to this air gap, because you are looking at this flux loop, linking loop is this linking loop. So that's the flux linking loop that you are having. So it depends only upon G2 A2, and uh, this is what you get. All right, great. So far so good. uh, flux linkage unit is Weber turn, because flux is in Webers, and times the number of turns. Now let's repeat the same thing with respect to the fact now N1 I1 is 0, because I1 is 0, N1 I1 is 0. So this MMF path, which there was a MMF here, N1 I1, this path is now short circuited. So you have N2 I2 sitting here. This is a short circuited path, so this reluctance will not have any role to play. In other words, whatever is the flux will go like this, and this is this will carry uh, the zero flux, because the potential difference, it's like this, that if the potential difference is zero, then the potential difference is zero, then potential difference divided by resistance, if resistance is non-zero, will be actually zero number, like 0 by 5 is 0, and therefore the current would be 0. Similarly here, the MMF applied here is 0, MMF applied is 0, divided by whatever is the finite value of R1 is 0, so therefore phi G1 is 0. So whatever is this phi W2 just passes here through effortlessly, passes through here effortlessly, then comes here, encounters R2, becomes equal to phi G2 R2, and then you close this circuit. Okay, so therefore what is the BG1? BG1 is going to be 0. Geometrically, if you look at this figure, when I excite this current, and this is an infinite path like this, it will just go and set it like this. There is no reason why it should come like this. That's what we are saying. Now, so what is BG1 is 0 Tesla. BG2 will be phi G2 by A2, which is phi G2 is N2 I2 by R2 divided by A2, which if you simplify, you will get it as N2 I2 mu 0 by G2. So you got BG2, that's the part 1. Now, flux linking the winding 1. Flux linking winding 1 is this phi W1. This is the flux which is linking it times the number of turns N1. But phi, from this figure, because phi G1 is 0, this phi W2 is equal to phi W1 by KCL. So therefore N1 times of phi W2, which is BG2 times of A2, which is same as, if you substitute that BG2 which is here, you will get it as N1 I2 mu 0 divided by A2 by G2. So now the previous mutual inductance what we had got? We had got N1 N2 by G2 mu 0 A2. What is the mutual inductance that you have got now? Again, you have got the mutual inductance, which is flux linking the winding 1, flux linking the winding 1 due to the current I2 is comes out to be same. So if one is shown as M12, another is shown as M21. One is, in this case, the, let's say that first one was, let's say this one, cause is this current, and was linking, creating flux in coil 2. Here the cause is current 2, creating flux in coil 1. Then both of them are equal. So when there are only two coils, we can write M1 2 equal to M21 is equal to M. There, because they are turning out to be identical. This will always happen. Mutual inductances are symmetric in nature. So therefore, and phi, if you look at flux linking the winding 2 due to current in the winding 2 alone, then it is N2 phi W2, and then substituting for that, you will get this. So the ratio of this flux linking the winding 2 due to current in the winding 2 is going to be the self-inductance of the winding 2, which is not asked in this particular question, but we are discussing it. So therefore you will get it as N2 square mu 0 A2 by G2. So this turns out to be the self-inductance, which is proportional to N2 square. And uh, okay, so let me just copy this. And let me this. So this is L1, this is L2, and let's write the mutual inductance, which is here. And copy this here. So if I now look at the product L1 and L2, okay, if I look at the product L1 L2, that is going to be N1 square N2 square mu 0 square into A1 by G1 plus A2 by G2 into A2 by A2 by G2. So this is same as N1. Now look at M square. What is going to be M square? N1 square, N2 square, mu 0 square, A2 square divided by G2 square. G2 square, is it not? So therefore, let's take this term common out. Then what will happen? We'll get this as M square into A1 by G1 into G2 by A2 plus of 1, and therefore M square will turn out to be 1 by 1 plus A1 G2 by A2 G1 times L1 L2. Now you can very clearly see that this number here, this factor, let's call this factor k. Okay, so I can write this as k times. So under root of it, I will write it as. So I will write m as k times under root of L1 L2. Then the k factor is going to be square root of 1 by 1 plus a1 g2 by a2 g1. Now because a1 g2 by a2 g1 is a positive number which you are adding to 1, and then this 1 plus this is a number therefore which is greater than 1, which is sitting in the denominator. So therefore 1 by this ratio is going to be a number which is less than 1. For example, 1 by 1.1 or 1 by 1.2, and then that's a number which is less than 1. If you take its square root, it will still remain less than 1. So therefore this k, which is sometimes called as coefficient of coupling, is always less than or equal to 1. In simple geometries, you may get it as 1, but actually it is less than or equal to 1 under ideal conditions itself. And then if there is further um, issues to be handled due to leakages and fringing, that may further bring this mutual coupling coefficient even then below 1. But you can check here that it is, as I expected, to be less than 1. Okay. So now this part is also done. We can now go to the last part. What is the last part? In the last part is actually the real problem, the generic problem. If you put two windings, you would actually be exciting both the windings, and you have to solve this basically circuit considering that both these windings are excited. So now this creates phi W1, this creates phi W2, and here is phi G1 and here is phi G2. So you will have phi W1 to be equal to phi G1 plus phi G2. Phi G2 will be same as phi W2. This is all application of KCL, and then phi W2 plus phi G1 will be equal to phi W1. Good. The reluctances are I have already calculated and written here. So now if you want to calculate phi G1, what am I going to do? I am just going to look across this loop, and the rise in MMF is N1I1, which divided by reluctance R1 will give me phi G1. If I have to calculate phi G2, better I look into this outside loop. So there are two MMFs which are acting are N1I1 and N2I2, both aiding each other. So the net rise in MMF is N1I1 plus N2I2, which is expanded across this R2. So therefore is expanded across this R2. Alternately assume this to be 0 MMF, then 0 mmf point, then this potential to be 0, then this magnetic potential will be N1I1, this will be minus N2I2. So what is acting across this R2 is N1I1 plus N2I2 divided by R2, that is the voltage by resistance being current, that same analogy. So therefore you get phi G2 as this. And what is flux connecting winding 1? Phi G2 plus phi G1. So add both of them together and you get the flux in the winding 1. Multiply this. So you can take, when you add it here, N1I1 can be taken as common, then 1 by R1 plus 1 by R2. So this is the reciprocal of the uh, of the of the resistances or reluctances acting. When N1I1 was acting alone, this is what would have been the flux which was created in the winding 2. When this was acting alone, then this last term which I have separately written here is N2I2 by R2. This is what would have been acting alone. Actual one flux is the superposition of two. So because the circuit here is mu r's are taken as fixed, the circuit is actually linear circuit, and you can see that results of superposition are also valid. So you could have calculated this flux also in the way that uh, uh, through the summation of the first two parts itself, that is first calculate assuming this alone acts, then calculate assuming this alone acts, then add the two for each of the reluctances, and you will get the corresponding, in addition you will get the flux linkages. So you will you will get that. And okay, so now you got phi W1. Now phi flux in the winding 2 is same as in the air gap 2. We have already seen it. So again, this is simplified expression here. Now BG1 is going to be simply now BG1 is going to be simply phi G1 by A1, um, and BG2 is going to be phi G2 by A2. So again, just I leave it to you to check it once again. It is exactly same thing which is happening. Flux linkages are number of turns times the flux linking the coil. And so if you expand it here, then both the currents are acting. You can see that it is like L1, the self-inductance of current, self-inductance of winding 1 times the current in the winding 1 plus mutual inductance of the two windings times the current in winding 2, and this plus is coming because the two fluxes are additive in nature. Similarly, phi W2 is N2 phi 2 is actually going to be equal to m times of I1 plus L2 times of I2. So you can actually write this whole thing. Finally, you could even write in a nice 2 by 2 matrix form that flux linking the winding 1 and flux linking the winding 2 depends, can be written as L1 L2 across diagonals, mutual inductances across the off diagonals. So this becomes a symmetric matrix times the current into. So a compact notation for it could be right could be written like this. Okay, so this solves that particular problem. Now one more interesting problem here is another interesting problem, and after that we will uh, close this lecture. So in this problem, what I have got is that for a DC magnetizing curve given below, it is possible to calculate the relative permeability mu r is equal to Bc by mu 0 Hc. So what is the curve given here? This BH curve, a nonlinear curve is given here. If you want to calculate relative permeability at any point of time, take the B divided by H further divided by mu naught, because if you just take B by H, it is mu 0 mu r, so further divided by mu naught and you will get the mu r. And this you can calculate. This is a M phi electric steel as a function of flux level BC. Assume the core. So this is my circuit here, a magnetic circuit here. Assume the core, very simple magnetic circuit. Assume the core of the figure below to be made of My electrical steel with dimensions ACAG 9 centimeter square. So air gap and the core, both of them are having same cross section area. So again, fringing, leakage, everything is neglected. Air gap is 0.05 centimeters, so a very small air gap here, and core length LC from here to here to here, this is 30 centimeters, much more larger. Number of turns is 500. Now what is asked here? Calculate the flux density, calculate the maximum flux density such that the reluctance of the core never exceeds. So reluctance of the core means of this path. The reluctance of the core never exceeds 5% of the reluctance of the total magnetic circuit. So total magnetic circuit will also include air gap. So this is, here is a simple figure now. You have Ni applied and MMF applied. It is expanded across Rc, the core reluctance, and it is in series with Rg, the air gap reluctance. Now what is required is reluctance of the core divided by the total reluctance Rc plus Rg should be less than or equal to 0.05, because 5% it should not be more than 5%, so 5 by 100 is 0.05. So write down for Rc, the core reluctance depends upon mu r also, so 1 by mu 0 mu r Lc by A. For Rg, just write down Rg is equal to 1 by mu 0 Lg by A, and AC and Ag are, all of them are same as A. So when you take this ratio here, these A's are all going to cancel out and mu zeros are also going to cancel out. So what is going to remain for RC for RC term only this LC by, sorry, for RC term only this LC by mu r will remain, and and therefore you will get LC by mu r divided by LC by mu r plus Lg by its mu r, which is basically 1. So interestingly, this expression tells you that basically impact of mu r is what? To effectively shrink the distance by the factor of the relative permeability. Now I can further simplify this as Lc divided by Lc plus mu r Lg, which should be less than 0.05. Now just substitute the dimensions. Lc is 30 centimeter, this is 0.05 centimeter. Since everything is in centimeters and I can take directly the ratio in centimeters, no problem. So I will substitute it less than or equal to 0.05, or in other words, you get that mu r should be greater than or equal to 11,400. So the point now here is mu r is a dimensionless quantity, so I am not expecting you to write any dimension here. So what we have to find is, now see, initially what happens in this region, the mu r is very high, but as the magnetic material starts saturating, if you calculate the B by H, it will keep reducing, because then the incremental flux increases as if there is a air only, nothing more than that. So the mu r will keep reducing as you keep going further. So we want to find out that maximum flux that we can set somewhere here, such that the mu r here should be, which is the ratio of this defined here, should be not more than should always remain more than, not less than 11,400. So to do that, what I am doing is I am taking two random points here. Okay, I take what So I take one point here, I take one point here. I have written the B and the H value. Now please note that this is the sheet which we have given you here is a semi-log sheet. In the previous example, what I had given was a plain sheet. Advantage of semi-log sheet is that you can bring out the saturation much more easily here. So the H here can go all the way up to 10 to the power 500,000, and the B is, this scale can be linear because the B is only, even when you apply such a high value of H, the B is really not going beyond 2. So y-axis can be taken linear, range is small. X-axis needs to be taken in a logarithmic scale because we are trying to cover a very large scale here, and each of this is actually only 1 unit distance. Okay, this is only 1 unit distance strictly speaking, but we are reading it as a logarithmic scale, so that's why 1 here implies 10, here it 2 implies 100, 3 implies 1000, 4 implies 10,000, and so on. So now, uh, now let's see. I took two mark points on the BH curve, and I have to figure out where will I get this 11,400 point. So first of all, what I say, let me try to put a straight line here. This looks like a nice straight line, so let me try to approximately put a straight line here. So so the B will be equal to slope of that straight line M times, as I said, even though here we have marked by taking inverse log as if it is 10, 100, 1000, 10,000, but actually what is coming there, that is for ease of reading, but what actually is coming there is logarithm of h on the base 10. So therefore the straight line can be written, for a semi-log sheet can be written as B is equal to M log 10 h plus C. So if you take two of them, B2 equal to B2 and B1 correspondingly, and subtract B2 minus B1, then you will get M log of H2 minus log of H1, and this C constant will disappear. But log M minus log N is log M by N. So therefore the slope can be written as this. So now I have already these 2 points here. So I substitute it here. I get the value of M. Once I get the value of M, substituting that value here, I calculate C for both the points, and I see that my answer is correct. It is both the ways. I get it as 1.1679. So hence now in that region we have got a nice approximation, linear approximation of B, which is given here. So now once the B is given, just divide it by mu 0 times of H and you will get it as mu R. So therefore this B divided by mu 0 H is equal to, this is the mu R, and this desired value I want it is 11,400. So therefore I substitute this, I equate this to 11,400, and then uh, this is what is the simplified expression that I get. Now what am I going to do is, see, this is a nonlinear equation and I have to solve for h. So that makes my job slightly difficult. So what I am going to do is I am going to follow a iterative process to solve for it. So I will define the error as LHS minus RHS. This is my error, and then I calculate it here at 3 points, h equal to 400, h equal to 100, h is equal to 10. For each of these points I just substitute it here, everything is in h, that's all, so I don't need to go to that graph sheet at all, and I get error as 3.94 minus 0.24 and 0.061. So it's quite, actually the way is I first tried 400, so it was positive. So I reduced h to 100, it became negative. but it is much less negative. It was much higher positive. So I knew then that H should be slightly more than 100. So I tried 120 and it came out to be 0.061. So even though this is, I can write a nice iterative procedure. Here I did at some trial and error. And since this is at the first decimal it is 0, so I accepted that value. And hence when I substituted that value here, I got Bmax to be equal to, from my expression, uh, I got Bmax to be equal to 1.6548. So does that answer the question? Calculate the maximum flux density such that the reluctance of the core never exceeds 5% of the total magnetic circuit. So therefore that number answer turns out to be 1.6548 Tesla. So with this, I think we are going to close now our discussion on magnetic circuits. I think next point that I will take up is mutual coupled circuits is what is the next point that I am going to slightly dive deep a bit in the next class. Thank you.